Hello, welcome to Caldwell County Today. I'm Paige Counts, Public Information Officer for Caldwell County. Today we have a very special episode of Caldwell County Today. I have Eric and Keegan joining me, and we're going to talk about our favorite teachers, or our most influential teachers. Since we know this is Teacher Appreciation Week, we wanted to do something a little different and reach out and say thank you to all the teachers, but we thought we would talk about some that influenced us. So we're going to start, and I'm going to ask, okay, where did you go to school? I think that's an important question to start with.
You want me to lead off here?
Sure.
All right. I went to school at Hudson Elementary and Hudson Middle, and also went to the middle college, but now it's called the Applied Sciences Academy, I think. So it changed its name since then, and that makes you feel kind of old that my high school changed its name.
Really? That makes you feel old?
It changed its name. It's a different place now, but I mean, a lot of the same faces are still there. So
you realize Eric and I did not have the option of a middle college or applied sciences college.
I am so happy I did.
We had the big three.
The big three. You had the West, South, and High Brighton.
So.
I can go into more detail than that with that, but I want to ask, did you go to kindergarten?
Oh, yes. I went to Rising Star, which is like a preschool kind of thing, but it was at Hudson Elementary.
Yeah.
And then I went to kindergarten as well, which, shout out to my kindergarten teacher. Her name is Miss Kern. She's like 6'4". She was a baller, and she never played basketball in her life, but I just call her baller because she's that tall. But she was fantastic. I always thought she was on stilts because she was that tall. I was always looking up in my life, and that always taught me to look up.
As a little kid, you were looking way up.
Miss Kern.
Okay, Eric, we'll let you answer.
Okay. By the time I came around, they did have kindergarten, because I know some folks that didn't go to kindergarten. That's why I asked Keegan that. I went to kindergarten half a day, not even a whole day. I don't know why my mom was overprotective, but half a day at College Avenue, where we went to church, at College Avenue Baptist Church. And then started first grade at East Harper, which is now apartments. And we've talked about that before, all the three of us. And then Davenport. Then at the time that I went through, they decided that Old Lenore High School would be Willis Street. And so I was there for Willis Street. And a lot of people weren't. It was only 4 years. It was only 4 years, because then they condemned the building, which, which we could have told them that when we were in it. But the new part was okay, but the old part was pretty old. And so then West Caldwell, because West had started with my oldest sister. She actually went to Lenore High for 1 year, and then went to West. So we were there for the beginning of all that.
And I, too, am a Caldwell County girl, but I had the K-8 experience. I went from kindergarten
That's what I was wondering.
to 8th grade at Collinsville. So as my husband frequently tells me, you did not go to middle school. Well, I covered those grades, trust me. And then I went to West Caldwell. So, it was a little bit different being in a K-8 school. I don't have anything to compare it to because I didn't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
So it was, I considered a good experience. And like Keegan, my kindergarten teacher is very memorable. I believe when they did kindergarten evaluation, we went all day, and they came to your house to do your evaluation. So I guess they sent the teacher and the aide around. I don't really remember a whole lot, but I seem to remember them coming to our house. Either that or I was very bad one day, and my parent had to visit with Miss Glazbrooks. But my biggest memory of kindergarten is we did a kindergarten play, and I was chosen to be a lily pad, and all my friends were flowers. And I was traumatized by this, and I thought it was because.
Oh, wow.
And I have told Miss Glazebrooks this story, so she knows it, should she be watching. That I thought she chose me to be a lily pad because I was the ugliest little girl in kindergarten.
Oh my goodness.
Boom, roasted.
But how,
But I mean,
a little girl, it's a little kid.
All your friends are flowers. So she actually told me later, she said, I knew you would sit there and be quiet and behave in the lily pad role. And and so when
That sounds like a teacher answer to
it's
me.
a teacher answer. And she actually gave me a pair of lily pad earrings, either when I finished 8th grade or graduated high school, and she had heard that story. So it was really sweet of
okay.
her. So
That's
yeah.
cute. That comes full circle. That's
comes
nice.
full circle. So anyway, that's my kindergarten story.
And Paige, you were the best lily pad there ever was, that lily pad.
I sat very quietly, I'm sure.
I just remember when I would leave midday of kindergarten, the other kids would be like, "You're not staying for nap time?" And I'm like, "No." And then I would go home. I went home waiting for my sister to come home.
I do remember crawling under a table to get away from a girl who wanted to talk to me during nap time because I was like, it's nap time. I take some things very seriously. Nap time is one of them.
I mean, some came to play, some came for the nap.
Yeah,
right.
I clearly came for the nap. By that point, I had a little sister say, I needed a nap.
Yeah. So did you? This is just, I know I'm diverging
okay.
here, but did you have people that were in class with you all the way through? All the way through. Did you?
Pretty
All the
much.
way through.
Yep, all the way through, kindergarten
through
through.
I do, and I work in this building with some of those people who are in. I mean, talk about coming full circle. They are now colleagues here in Caldwell County government. Who
Oh, wow.
I went to kindergarten with all the way through high school, and we are here working together. So
That's
Wow.
pretty cool. Full circle.
maybe that makes us sound a whole lot like Mayberry. I don't know, but there you go. Where are they now? They're working in Caldwell County.
They're here working with you for Caldwell County. Oh, wow.
So let's talk about some of those teachers that were influential.
Sure. I remember my 3rd grade teacher was the same as my 4th grade teacher, and I was heartbroken that I was going to have to say goodbye to Mrs. Brown after 3rd grade. But then she was my 4th grade teacher, and I was like, yes, this is fantastic. Because she took over for another teacher I think I was supposed to have a different teacher in 3rd grade, and then she got promoted. So I was happy that I had Miss Brown for 2 years. She was probably the best teacher I had at elementary school. Not that the rest of them weren't amazing. And if you're able to deal with kids that were probably like me in elementary school, hats off to you. Way to go, teachers. But Miss Brown was probably the one that made the biggest impression at Hudson Elementary School. And Lord knows I could be a little runt. Anyway.
Okay, Keegan, maybe we want to talk some more about your. I will say that for another show. Eric, what about you?
Oh, man. Are we talking about elementary school, I guess?
Yeah.
The biggest, probably in influence for me in elementary school was I had a fresh, we worked near App, so we had a lot of fresh new teachers. I had Marcia Carty for 2nd and 3rd grade, and she just, loved me to pieces. She liked comics, and I wouldn't read Dick and Jane. And so she would let me read comics. If you read Dick and Jane, then you can read Spider-Man, or you can read something else. Awesome. And she had a Slurpee cup. She was a fangirl. She had a Slurpee cup of Red Sonja from Marvel that was like a 7-Eleven. And there's no 7-Elevens around here, and there never was. And so she had a 7-Eleven cup that she drank out of every day that was a Marvel character. And so she was always understanding of that and tried to adapt to me. So, our biggest contention was math, which it was with every teacher I ever had. But but other than that, she was great. So she really did influence me, and she looked after me. I had a run-in with a teacher from a different class, and she kind of fought for me. She was like, leave my kids alone. She kind of had a little run-in with this other teacher, and it, I felt safe. I felt safe in Miss Carty's room. So,
Is there anything more powerful than when you're an elementary school student and an adult is in your corner? Like that's like you feel like you can take on the world.
well, I don't know. I guess I'm always in shock and awe about stuff like that. So when somebody's really upset, sometimes it kind of floors me. I'm like, oh, really? Is there a problem? And so, I mean, even as an adult, I've run into that. It's like, oh, really? That bothered you that bad? So anyway, so it's always a surprise to me when somebody gets like that upset about something. But
I think you're right. I mean, as kids, our teachers, especially in elementary school, we really look up to them.
Absolutely.
oh yeah, it's a second mom in a way.
It's a
yeah.
second mom, and I've already mentioned Miss Glazebrook, who was my kindergarten teacher. She was there for the whole class, and going to Collettsville, you had that family experience. I think they pretty early on learned my parents were like the super volunteers that if anybody knows my family, they'll know what I'm talking about. So, they latched on to that. And in first grade, it was Rita Joins who was, reinforcing those reading skills. And never mind what I do today.
Yeah.
I was not a good reader. I was a great storyteller. So what happened was if my dad sat down with me to read the book, to read Dick and Jane, I was not a fan of Dick and Jane. I thought they needed to be a little more active. So I would make up stories based on the pictures. I really didn't read the words. So you really had to watch me as I was reading because I told you, what I thought Dick and Jane and whatever their dog's name, Spot, I guess, was doing, and my dad would not be paying attention. And so Dick and Jane went on all kinds of adventures in my books. Didn't really help with the reading thing, though. So
But the imagination was there.
The imagination was always there.
And when you get a teacher, it's like you can be imaginative in this project. You're like, yes, finally,
I can
my
make
skills.
it up. My skills, yeah. That's probably the reason I enjoy those essay questions more than I enjoy the true, false, and facts.
There you go.
So there you go.
There's
Okay.
end of year. Did you guys have end of year like EOGs?
We had I think they're called the California Achievement Test is the one I remember.
That's the biggest hats off I can give to teachers is having to deal with the end of grade testing actually supposed to be the grade of them as a teacher. And it's like, well, I might just stink at this one subject. It's not really your fault, but, it's always...
Yeah.
Public school's interesting that way.
I do remember one year, I think I was in second or third grade, we did not finish what the state of North Carolina deemed all of the required reading. My entire class didn't, for whatever reason. We didn't finish all the books we were supposed to read. So my mom and a friend's mom decided that we needed to finish those books. So they enrolled us at Appalachian in summer school with the teaching program, and we finished reading all those books.
Oh my
so
goodness.
Thank you, Mom. I can read now.
Wow.
And it probably wasn't the school's fault. It may have been, we had a lot of snow days that year or whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So when I say I was pushed as a student, that's just one example. But it wasn't just my parents. I had teachers that were there encouraging me.
Yeah.
Keegan, do you have other influential teachers as you think about middle and high school?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first got to middle school, sixth grade is the worst transition period when you go to middle school. But my first teacher I had was Dr. Toothman, and she's still teaching at Hudson Middle School as far as I know, and she was awesome. I remember I did try to get out of her class one time because they had baseball tryouts, and I was like, I'm not going to play baseball, but here's an hour for you of getting out of her class. But I should know because she's so sweet and kind, and those are the teachers I really gravitated towards, the people that were caring and like my mother in a way, like you guys were saying that it's like a second mother, but she was very cool. And I mean, my parents weren't totally keen on us watching other movies that weren't PG or further down the line. And there was this one day we watched Bolt, and she was like, it's not a big deal, it's just got peril or something, and she was so sweet about it, and jumped through the hoops of my parents being a little scared that we were going to see something we weren't supposed to see. But yeah, I remember that. She's pretty awesome, Dr. Toothman.
Okay. Middle school, I mean, I went to Davenport, and Davenport was different because at the time, and I'm sure it's not the case now, but at the time they had special needs kids there, and so it took special kids on our side because they were on the other side of the room, lunchroom and everything, and they were there, and sometimes they would have problems, they would act out, they would have things going on, and scare some of the kids, and I remember my sister having a issue with that. She got scared because they all were ahead of me, so she'd gone through that. But Davenport was unique, and it was really odd. But then going to Willow Street, I just remember trying to get by, man. That's all. I don't know. Middle school to me was just like, it was not a fun time. I mean, I think I had a lot more fun when I got to college, when I got to high school and could kind of study more stuff I wanted. But I was just like, I was just there. I was an astronaut. I was taking up space. That's all I was doing. I was just there. So there was a English teacher, Miss Porter, that I found out later my wife actually had as well. And I do remember her asking her. She was my English teacher, so I'd ask her like, comic book names and stuff like that, and she always gave me the wrong answer. Like one of Marvel's guys is the Submariner, and she told me Submariner and things like that. And I was like, and so for years I was thinking Submariner. Nope, it was Submariner. And so stuff like that. But yeah, that was a blur, and I had a horrible time, and I was glad when it was over.
Amazing.
Well, I can identify with you, Eric. I'm not going to say I had a horrible time, but middle school's where I learned to study. And my mom actually was convinced I was going to fail the 6th grade. She thought I was not going, this was it. My education would end at 6th grade at Collinsville. That was just going to be it for me because I struggled so much that year. However, I was in a combination class. I don't know if they do this anymore, where they take a small group of a lower grade and put them in with the next grade. So it was in a 6th, 7th combination class, and there would be times when I guess the 7th graders were doing hard stuff that we couldn't handle with our little 6th grade minds, so we'd be sent to another classroom to do independent study or something. But it took phenomenal teachers because those teachers dealt with me again in 7th grade.
Forgive my ignorance, but how does one teach a class on one side and another teacher teaches a class on a different side? Do they just keep their volume?
Well, no, we would literally, if it was math, maybe we'd learn math all together.
Oh, okay.
But then, this is advanced math, so you're going to go do a worksheet in this other room down the hall.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Of this subject. So it was always...
Oh, the worksheets.
The worksheets,
oh,
yes.
Wow. You just brought back a flood of memories there, Paige.
Yeah, worksheets. But we had phenomenal teachers. Teresa Reniger and Suzanne Earp handled this well because at Collinsville, unlike at your larger middle schools, we went between 2 classes in the middle school years. Right. One taught English, spelling, language arts kind of things. The other one taught math, science.
Yeah.
And so you switched between those 2 classes.
Right.
You'd have a locker, you had a desk, and you just kind of, because, that's all the kids you had. So really wasn't much point in.
I mean, that was the biggest adjustment is graduating from cubbies to lockers. I know. I really wanted the cubby. The cubby was the awesome bit. It was awesome because then if you had the little cubby, you knew nobody was going to steal anything. But you could look back there, if the day was getting long, you could look back there and say, "Mom packed a PB&J," and I can see it right there, and that was the motivation to continue the day. That's why cubbies were awesome. Just saying.
Okay.
2021, go Cubbies. And teachers who love cubbies.
Now you talk about having the multiple grades in classes. That my 1st through 3rd was that way. They were all all had Miss Carty.
Right.
That was 1st through 3rd. They were all in there, and she would walk around, and 1st graders start doing this, 2nd graders start doing this, and then we're doing this, and then in the afternoon, it's like, oh, you can watch PBS. You can go over here and watch.
Oh yes, talk
Yeah.
about watching PBS and Sesame Street. And
You can watch
Electric
Sesame
Company.
Street and Electric Company.
I mean, that harkens back to the elementary school days. I don't know that we watched that in middle school, but we could have.
We could, yeah.
We could have.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock was on Saturdays. They didn't play nothing that cool while we were in school.
Really?
I don't know that we got to see Schoolhouse Rock actually in school.
No, we saw it on Saturday mornings with the regular cartoons.
Yeah, with regular stuff.
Wow.
So it was and you'd be like, man, I hate this one or something.
Yeah, but there's some of them I can still probably sing. I'm not going to for our viewers, but I probably could still do some.
And in the high school, since I didn't have the typical high school experience, I went to the Middle College Applied Sciences Academy now. But I would say most of the teachers are still there. But I mean, every teacher that was there was really good and hands-on because it was such a small environment, and you knew every kid that was in your class, your graduating class that is. And you would get to different sects of stuff, like you would do IT, or you would do biomedical, or you would do construction. And I remember picking IT, and I had a lot of good teachers in IT, like Miss Patty Ramsey, Mr. Myers, Kim Poole, and Lord knows the old curmudgeon of the campus, Mr. Bean. I'm sure if he saw this, he'd be like, yep, that was the curmudgeon. But bless his heart, I'm sure he's retired by now.
You wouldn't be referring to Grayson.
I would be referring to Grayson Bean. That's the one the same.
Wow.
Do y'all know Grayson Bean?
He was my principal.
Was he really?
No.
No. We're talking about
Grayson.
Grayson is his son.
No, Grayson taught English at West. I don't know if
Oh,
you
okay.
were
I didn't
there.
have him. I had Mr. Bean that was a
You had
commissioner.
Ron Bean.
Yeah, I had Ron Bean. That's it, Ron. And he was great. He would come and sit in the hall with you and he would just plop down in the hall because everybody at West, I'm sure they did at South too, but you basically lined the hall, sit on the carpet, and
You had your
between
spot
classes.
in the school.
Yeah, you had your group of people, and you'd just sit down, and Mr. Bean would come and plop down beside you. Hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing right now? What are you doing in this class? What do you got there? If he was trying to be hip to the jive, he would he would try to say, what are you guys doing? Who is this Madonna person? Who are these people?
Who is this Madonna?
Why does Frankie say relax?
And I think that's the thing that made our teachers memorable is they invested in our lives. For me, obviously in high school, it was more my English teachers than the math teachers. God bless everyone who tried to teach me math. I can function in society with my math skills, but that's about it. I'm not going to be a math scholar ever.
Hey, do you know what a nickel is? Because a lot of kids these days don't even understand what a nickel is. They think it's a quarter.
Okay, no, I got that much. I got that much. I can do that.
Has COVID taken that much of a...
No, it's the age of the kids. Like my kids really get confused between a nickel and a quarter because they're so used to digital money. They don't ever really mess with physical money. So they're like, I got this thing online I want to buy, it's $10. Okay, transfer money to their account, they buy it.
Right.
But it's like, they don't understand the change thing, or they're like, they gave me cash. They're really weird about it. It's really strange.
That is really
That's a new one,
strange.
Eric.
That's a whole new, that's a whole topic of conversation right there. And how our society has changed. And which brings me to how teachers have had to change the way they teach. Because
Exactly.
we just talked about a teacher that was at West, Mr. Bean, when I was there, and then he taught technology for
Right.
you. So not only did he change subject matter,
Right. That's just...
the kids changed and
yeah.
society has changed so much.
Well, you were talking about testing earlier, and I remember us being tested once every 2 or 3 years.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah,
Like you only
had that standardized testing. You only had that testing once every 2 or 3 years, and it was to see what your aptitude was. It didn't matter to the teacher.
Right.
It was like, see if you're an idiot, or are you stupid? Not them. So it was, but it was rare, and you would be like, oh, we got testing this year, because it was really weird.
Yeah, we I mean, the tests we had were tests our teachers created, I guess. I mean,
Well, the ones we had were the little circle dot things to see
Yeah,
see how you were doing.
yeah, I mean, the
So I'm sure they were
achievement
being
test,
tested a little bit, but at the same time, they were more. It wasn't so much on the teacher.
It was on us.
It was on us. It was on our side. But middle school wise, I wasn't that into anything. I did learn trombone in that time. Thank you, Miss Graber, who has gone on to heaven. But Miss Graber taught me how to play, and then which I didn't honestly enjoy. And and then, but I stayed in band, and I had Mr. Miller, and then we had marching band, and I really liked Mr. Miller. I had John Miller and marching band, and my first introduction to high school was that we had band camp before school started. So my freshman year, and I'm terrified, because I'm not that good at the trombone anyway, and I'm sitting here, Miss Graber's already, not happy with me. Now I'm going to make somebody else mad. So you go, and I was terrified, and my sister was a senior, and I was a freshman, and so we started marching in the parking lot at West. And, we're marching in the hot sun with your instruments in the middle of the day, and I would hear Mr. Miller yell, "Stafford!" And I was like, "Oh God, what did I do? What's going on?" And it was my sister, and she was out of step. And if you were out of step, I'm sorry, people who are watching this, people know this is said with love, but if you were out of step and you were consistently out of step with Mr. Miller, he would kick you. He would kick you, and you got back in step.
Motivation.
It was motivation. There was pain involved. So you didn't want him to yell at you, and you didn't want him to kick you. Now, he was a great musician and taught me a lot of stuff. He taught me a lot about World War II because he was on a boat. He was on the boat outside of one of the other Japanese towns that they were going to drop another atomic bomb on. They were going to go for a third, and then they surrendered. And so he's like, "I love the atomic bomb." I did not have to do D-Day on the beaches of Japan. And, he loved the atomic bomb. He was so happy. And he got to come home. The war was over, and he got to come home. So, but he was great. He was a lot of fun. And we grew up with his kids. And so, that's another thing. Your teachers had kids, and they were in there with you. And it's kind of crazy. So I'll leave on Mr. Miller for that, and we'll talk about the other one later. Y'all know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, and if I look at overall most influential, I would have to go back to those middle school years, which were so difficult for me, and I learned how to study there. Suzanne Earp, who taught math and science, God bless her for putting up with me. She was determined that her students were going to leave knowing how to study. And that's one thing that carried me through college, through graduate degrees. She made sure that I could study. And then Nancy Hegg, who was our 8th grade teacher, teaching me how to write, how to diagram sentences, things like that most people hate. That's what got me to where I am today. It's those very basic skills. And then in high school, it was Melissa Kaufman, now Eggers, telling me that she graded on ability, not how well your paper's written, and that I could do better.
Wow.
It was conversations like that really shaped me and pushed me.
Right. I don't know if anybody graded me based upon potential. That'd be hard to do because
You have so much potential.
So much potential. Accuse the Pinocchio meme.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know we're talking about public school teachers, but when I took college classes at the middle college, and I remember taking public speaking, and I feel like public speaking has been the most influential thing in my career as far as trying to get over the whole hump of talking to people. And we don't necessarily have people in front of us to talk, but you have just to be able to open up. And I feel like I had a professor at Caldwell Community College. Her name was Miss Toy. I took this in my high school years, but she was probably the most influential. And if I could retake a class again, I would probably say I would want to take that class because Lord have mercy, I would have been so much better now than I was then.
That's what everybody thinks. I mean, once you get out of school, you're kind of like, man, I should have studied that harder.
Right.
You know.
But just getting over that hump of social anxiety and trying to deal with assimilating into the world, because that's what school is supposed to do, is assimilate you into the world, and then you get out of school and you're like, where's homeroom? There is no homeroom for life. But, there's that.
But that's the thing. Teachers don't just teach us the subjects that they're, required to teach, and when you're teaching the test, they teach us so much about life, and it's amazing as we have sat around and just talked about mindless everyday things, because if you don't know us personally, you should know, here's full confession, when we sit down to talk to each other, it could go on for an hour or two.
Yeah, we have jam sessions. We talk.
We talk, and it covers everything from A to Z.
Whatever's in my head 9 times out of 10.
Whatever's in Eric's
that's
head,
sad.
whatever's in my head, and sometimes I'm like, oh, by the way, here's this one work thing we got to cover.
You're the Grateful Dead of discussion.
It really is. But a lot of those factoids we come up with came from our teachers.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And the other thing I was just thinking about as I was sitting here is Keegan had an advantage that we didn't have. He had internet. We had encyclopedias.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, yeah, the encyclopedia.
And I like to shout out to my parents who bought encyclopedias the year I was born. So those were super helpful my whole life. But it would have been more helpful had they bought them maybe
A little later. That's what I was sitting here thinking.
A couple years later, because if I wasn't reading Dick and Jane, making that up, clearly I wasn't quite absorbing the encyclopedias.
We had 2 sets of encyclopedias and a giant dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
And the 2 sets of encyclopedias, we had my mom's encyclopedia she had when she was a girl that was like from the 50s, and then we had the ones we got in the 70s. And so we had those, and there was also this giant dictionary that some traveling guy went around and sold. And I remember them sitting on the front porch, and I think it was like, God, it had to be 1978 or something, and it was like $75. And my dad was like, 1978, $75 is a lot of money. And he was, I can't believe you bought this dictionary, but we used it all through school.
Yes, we used the dictionary.
Used it.
We used the dictionary. We were super excited when Dad bought a computer. I mean, even though it was with the floppy disk and the whole thing, that was a huge deal in our house.
Yeah.
I remember we had a medical dictionary.
Really?
Yes, a medical dictionary. And my father kept flipping through because I was sick one day, and he was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And he's like, I can't find anything wrong with you. You got to go to school, son. And I was like, it's in there somewhere.
That's a big book.
It's in there somewhere. But, I had to go to school nevertheless. But hey, it was worth a shot to get out of 2nd grade.
That was 2nd grade?
That was 2nd grade.
Wow.
Yeah, it was worth a shot.
And, I mean, there were the teachers, the classroom teachers, but I also think about those teachers that did the extracurricular stuff, your gym teachers, your music teachers, your librarians. All those people had an influence.
Absolutely.
I have joked that I actually got a job based on the recommendation of my elementary school PE teacher, and it's true.
Sweet.
Diane Swanson was our elementary school PE teacher, and when I applied for a job at hospice, her sister, Kathy,
said, you need her.
is CEO of hospice, so Diane put in a good word for me, so thank you. Those connections pay off, and I think that has a lot to do with when you have that K-8 school, you have a lot of community around that.
That's true, and it's even though as things went on, we got into bigger schools and it expanded, you still had those same folks around you, the same kids you'd known and like today that are working here. But in my high school, there was Mr. Miller, but probably the biggest influence on me was Edith Ferguson Carter. And Miss Carter was the art instructor, and you actually had to try out for art before you got to take the class. Now, I don't know if you do that today. I don't know if that's still the same thing. But we had to submit 3 pieces for her to look at before she would take you on, because she didn't want you thinking it was a slough program and you're just going to come in here and get an A.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she didn't want it to be that. So you had to do stuff. And I remember it being taken very seriously that I had to turn in these 3 pieces and do something for her before I got there. And then once I got there and we started doing all the stuff we'd done, I took art classes my whole life. Toy Allen, not a teacher at school, but I took classes from Toy Allen locally. And so I'd had art teachers before. That wasn't a new thing. And so when I got in there with her and they started going over the basics, then I'm like, oh, I know this. And so then when she saw what you could do, then she would like kind of leave you alone. And then she would try to get you to go out of your comfort zone and draw, like, because we did a lot of, like you see the portraits of fruit and stuff like that. I like to draw comic books. I wasn't drawing portraits of fruit or painting fruit, but in her class, you were painting fruit. And she would say, wow, I like the way you mix this color or something like that. And I'm still not good with colors, but
wait till you see my super banana.
More of super banana, or it'd have energy crackles around it like a Kirby crackle. Yeah. It would have that kind of thing. But she was always inspired by people's creativity, and so when she saw that you were creative and would at least think outside the box, then she was really cool on that. And then by the time I was a senior, there wasn't a lot of 4-year art students. And so by the time I was taking it for the 4th time, then she was like, you tell me what you want to study. And then we did that. And she also helped me pick a college. She helped me study up about that. Her nephew, which a lot of people may or may not know, is Alan Finley, that runs Alan Finley Design in Hickory and is well known in Hickory. And he went to Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte and got a graphic design degree there, and that's where I went because Ms. Carter was like, that's where you need to go. That's the hot school right now for graphic design, and so she sent me there. So, she influenced my life a lot in that way.
And that's incredible. And one thing I'm going to go ahead and confess, anytime there's something that has to be designed, I'm like, Eric, help me out here.
He'll phone that in real quick. He'll do that quick.
And I'll go, I have an idea for something, and he sketches something out in like 30 seconds. And I've got 2 stick people, and I'm trying to explain to him. He's like, do you mean this? And it's perfect camera-ready art. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I meant. So it really has, and you may not be doing that full time.
Well, I did it one time, and that was my job for a while. And so that's why I can do that, is I did get paid and made a living doing that. And it was, time's wasted, bud. You better get that done. It was. I used to laugh at the salesman at Forbes Printing when I worked at Forbes Printing, because they would say, I want new, hip, creative, and I need it by noon. And I said, well, new, hip, and creative just left. That just went out the door because you want it by noon. But yeah, so it influenced my whole life, I would say. And she did, and she still does. And she's gone now. I'm still friends with her daughter, and talked to Margaret Martine, and still friends with her. She says that Margaret says that Edith still had artwork of mine if I want to come get it. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to see it or not. Let's go to antiquity. You can burn it, throw it away, whatever you want to do. But it makes me wonder what she kept, because you kind of keep the ones you like, so it makes me wonder what she kept. But and then as a senior gift for everybody, she did all of our portraits.
Wow.
So if you were a 4-year student for you, then she did a personal portrait of you, which I still have, which she did in pastel. And she got real crazy with mine, and she told me, she said, you won't care, so I'm gonna go crazy. And she did. There's a lot of crazy colors in my face and stuff in it, and I had on some green V-neck shirt I never owned in my entire life. But she did. She was like, but she really mixed a lot of color into my face in that picture, and try to pop that up here so you can see it. But
sweet.
it was but it's huge. It was huge. It was a huge piece. So
And Edith was an amazing artist.
yeah, amazing artist, down to earth. I learned all about Tom Dooley because of her, because she was so big into Tom Dooley legend, and then of course had Whippoorwill Academy. I did have a gallery showing at Whippoorwill Academy when she first started, and she had me I had a gallery showing. It's the only gallery showing I think I've ever done in my life. But I mean, I did it for like, college, or here's a piece for this show or something for that, but not a whole thing. It's just me, and it was kind of crazy. So it was different, and she really did influence my life. We went to New York. The school did us a trip to New York, and I went with her and Margaret and her South students, and I still know those kids very well that I went to New York with. So it's kind of crazy.
And Eric, as we transition here, I'm going to ask a question I didn't warn you about.
Oh, okay.
As a parent, how are you seeing teachers influence your kids? And working with your kids through COVID and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, because Caitlin is my daughter. She's so smart, and she's so smart. I mean, it's crazy how smart she is, and so they just shine to her. They love her to pieces because she's smart and she's sweet, and they just love her. And then Brent at the same time is incredibly smart. He's not your go-getter like old man here wasn't, but they know. I mean, he's incredibly smart, and he's going to follow through. He's going to do what he needs to do, and they're like, he's so sweet. I mean, that's the first thing they say, and
Sounds like somebody else I know.
Well, I mean, I mean, Kathy's a big part of it. Kathy's more on them about school, and she's kind of more the school marm. I'm like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'll fuss if it's looking bad, but I'm not going to fuss if it's not. So, and I try to tell them I'm proud of them all the time, because I remember being shocked when my dad said he was proud of me, and I was shocked not because he never said that, but he was always working. He was working quite a lot when I was growing up, and so by the time I'm graduating high school, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm very proud of you," then it's like, I didn't really recall him ever saying that, but it was because he was so busy. He was such a busy person, and so I was like, "Ugh." So I try to tell him, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen to you, so you might as well let them know now.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's most of you probably know I have 2 stepchildren, and we moved Charles's sophomore year of high school. We left Lenore, took him out of High Brighton, moved him to small town Virginia, and he was moved into a 6 through 12 school.
Wow.
So he had the K-8 experience at Happy Valley. He didn't go the entire time at Happy Valley, but and then 1 year of a traditional high school, then to a 6 through 12 school, and it took a while for him to adjust, but he had a computer teacher that he really gravitated toward. Somebody that got him involved in robotics, and just pulled him into the high school. And by the time of his senior year, he decided, this is my child, yes. He was going to rule the school and dress better than his teachers, because he thought they needed to step it up a little bit. So
Wow.
he was wearing bow ties to school. But I know another young man who may or may not have worn bow ties.
No, it also sounds like somebody else I know.
And Charles also insisted on carrying a traditional coffee cup, not a travel coffee mug, but we lost a lot of coffee mugs that year with him carrying.
Why? I'm just wondering on that. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I can't explain that, but when he broke his dad's favorite Appalachian State mug, I had to be like, okay, we're going to have to stop this little habit.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teachers out there, and actually when I talked the guys into doing this show today, I was thinking about the people I know who are teaching now and how I've talked to them about some of the challenges they faced with COVID, with trying to teach online, with the parents like Eric who have tried to encourage their kids to stay active with schooling, online schooling. You know,
and that's been hard for everybody. Online school has been just as hard for the teachers as it has been for the students. And a lot of people don't really realize that. It's incredibly hard because, you know, you're trying to get a kid's attention basically through the box. And, you know, you guys are watching us right now because you want to. Some people, you know, at school, they're not wanting to, so it's difficult. And the grades have suffered. Everybody's grades have suffered, I think.
I mean, I know how my mind wanders during a Zoom meeting, so I can't imagine an instructor trying to get through to me, a teacher at any grade level.
Absolutely.
I just, so kudos to the teachers right now.
Definitely.
Because you have done amazing jobs during unprecedented times, and you went from probably not really knowing a whole lot about Zoom to being Zoom experts.
Easily. Yeah.
So, you know, I appreciate that. I don't have children in the school system, but I see that and I see the great steps you've taken, and kudos to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's been difficult.
All right, guys. Anything else you want to say to teachers, school personnel that you can think of?
Thank you for dealing with all the bright children, just like me, and you know other people that Eric was talking about. Just hats off to you. I don't know how you do it every day. And I got to be honest. If I was a teacher and I was having to do COVID schooling, I'm old school. I like a piece of paper to actually get to know somebody, the student, and how they're struggling and what they're having to deal with. So I'm sure that is not fun having to deal with. So my hat's off to all the instructors and teachers out there who are not making amazing money and still willing to do it.
Yeah, just thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for looking after us. I mean, they're there all year round. I mean, I know, because you don't think about, like we were talking about electronics and that stuff. I know teachers have messaged my kids and said, how are you doing so far this summer? You know, things like that, and over that time. You know, how's things going? Is this all right? You keeping up your reading? You doing this? You know, I mean, they check on them all the time. So it's really kind of cool.
And it's not just checking on how they're doing educationally. A lot of times it's just, you know, how are you really doing as a person? And I think as students, a lot of times we don't see that, you know, that teacher really does care about me as an individual, that I'm not the best math student in the world. But still, you know, my math teachers didn't kick me out of the room and say, come back when you can count to 10. They continued to work with me, and they checked in on my well-being, my health. So you're doing way more than just educating
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Caldwell County Today.